We are absolutely swimming in data. I mean, it's everywhere. It's being used for incredible things. Curing diseases, building smarter cities, crafting policies that affect every single one of us. But here's the big question, right? How do we use all that amazing information without giving up our fundamental right to privacy? That is the balancing act, the tightrope walk we're going to get into today.
You've probably heard the term anonymized data 1,000 times. And when you hear it, you probably feel a little bit safer, right? Your name's gone, your address is gone, you're basically just a number in a giant spreadsheet. But what if I told you that feeling of security might just be, well, an illusion? Is so-called anonymous data really as anonymous as we've been led to believe?
Now, before we dive into all the risks and get you worried, let's talk about why we even share data in the first place. Because the upsides, they are massive. It's all about harnessing information for the public good. And here is a perfect real-world example for you. You have government agencies like India's National Statistical Office, the NSO, and they collect just enormous amounts of information. They then share what's called microdata with researchers and policymakers. And those are the people who use it to solve huge challenges, everything from public health crises to economic growth. It's basically the fuel for smart, evidence-based progress.
So, what is this microdata we keep mentioning? Well, think of it as super detailed, granular data, right down to the level of individual people or families. But of course, the obvious stuff, names, specific addresses, all those direct identifiers, they get stripped right out. At least, that's what we thought was enough.
And this quote really gets to the heart of the whole challenge. Organizations like the NSO are constantly performing this delicate balancing act. As our source material puts it so well, the goal is to master the privacy-utility trade-off. You want to maximize data protection for people, but you can't lock it down so much that it becomes totally useless for research. It's a tough needle to thread.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. That cozy sense of security we get from basic anonymization, it's starting to look a lot more like a magic trick, an illusion.
You see, the old way of thinking was pretty simple. Just remove the names and addresses, and boom, the data's safe. But that's just not true anymore. In today's world, with incredibly powerful data science tools and just countless other public data sets floating around out there, that old method is like putting a screen door on a submarine. The new reality is that people with the right skills can actually cross-reference different data sources and connect the dots to figure out exactly who you are.
So how in the world does this re-identification actually happen? Well, it's through these sneaky little things called quasi-identifiers. The best way to think about them is like puzzle pieces. By itself, one piece, say your zip code, is pretty vague. Another piece, like your age, is also pretty broad. But when you start combining them, zip code plus age plus your occupation, all of a sudden those vague little pieces can click together to form a unique picture of one and only one person.
And the result of all this is a really significant risk of what's called re-identification. That privacy that was promised, that safety net we all thought we had, it can suddenly vanish, putting the very citizens the data was supposed to help at risk.
Okay, so the old shields are broken. They're full of holes. Does that mean we have to just lock all the data away and throw away the key? No, not at all. It just means we need a much, much smarter shield. And this is where our solution comes into play. It's called the Adaptive Safe Data Framework. Think of it as an intelligent, context-aware privacy engine that was built specifically for this complex, modern data world. So its mission is really comprehensive. This isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It automatically sniffs out risky data, it actually simulates attacks to see where the weak points are, and then it intelligently applies just the right level of anonymization. It's all about balancing that crucial trade-off we talked about earlier. And super importantly, it helps organizations stay compliant with modern data laws like the DPD-B Act.
All right, so that sounds fantastic in theory, right? But how does this smart shield actually work? Let's pop the hood and take a look inside.
The whole process breaks down into 4 really clear steps. First up, risk profiling. The system scans the data, hunting for those tricky quasi-identifiers we mentioned. Then it moves into attack simulation, where it essentially becomes the bad guy, testing the data to see how it would hold up against a real attack. Based on those results, it applies adaptive protection, using the right privacy tool for the job. And finally, and this is key, it runs a utility evaluation to make sure the data is still actually useful for researchers.
So those 4 steps are organized into 3 core modules that are constantly working together. You've got risk assessment, privacy enhancement, and utility measurement. It's a smart, dynamic cycle. It assesses the risk,
enhances the privacy, and then measures the usefulness. It's not a one-and-done fix, it's a living system. To do all this, the framework has a really sophisticated toolkit. It's not just using one hammer for every problem. It can do things like group specific ages into broader age ranges. Or it can add a tiny, carefully calculated amount of mathematical noise to the data to obscure individual identities. And for the highest risk data, it can even generate completely artificial, synthetic data that has the same statistical properties as the real stuff, but contains absolutely no real individual information. Pretty amazing, right?
So what does this all add up to? After going through this whole sophisticated process, what's the actual real-world payoff?
Well, the impact is huge, and it's not just one thing. Of course, the biggest win is for citizen privacy. That's the main goal. But by making data safely available, the framework also unlocks all that crucial research and innovation we talked about. And when people see that their data is being handled responsibly, it builds public trust. Plus, it helps everyone stay on the right side of the law. It really is a win-win-win situation.
And maybe one of the best parts is that this isn't some mysterious black box. The framework actually produces a clear, automated privacy utility report. It shows exactly how the data was protected and how much analytical value it still has. This kind of transparency is what gives organizations the confidence they need to share data, because now they can actually prove that it's safe.
Look, frameworks like this are a massive leap forward. There's no doubt about it. But as our technology gets even more powerful and our data becomes even more personal and detailed, it leaves us with one last big question to chew on. What's next? What's the next frontier we're going to need to cross to truly protect our digital selves?